rolling Boone, Chattanooga, there you are.
Today we're diving into famous musicians you didn't know served in the military. So which singing cowboy flew transport missions in World War II? This list will surprise you, it'll move you, and it'll definitely change how you hear their music. All right, hit it, Pat.
This is maybe on the floor, but my eyes will see only you.
Pat Boone, the polished patriot. While Elvis was swiveling hips and shaking things up, Pat Boone was smoothing everything out with penny loafers and perfectly pressed slacks.
Say goodbye to the main attraction. She's the girl that's marrying me.
He was the cardigan-clad heartthrob moms approved of, and during the 1950s, he quietly served in the National Guard, while also climbing the charts with hits like Love Letters in the Sand. Yeah, impressive. Boone balanced basic training and television tapings like it was all part of the same Sunday schedule. And no, he may not have seen combat, but he took his service very seriously, just like everything else he did in his squeaky clean image. And when he wasn't crooning, he was showing up for drills with the same unfailing charm he brought to the Pat Boone Chevy showroom. Cause underneath all that wholesomeness was a guy who genuinely cared about duty, decency, and doing the right thing. Elvis Presley. You could almost hear the collective scream across America when Elvis Presley got his draft notice in 1957. The boy who just lit the world on fire with Hound Dog and his hips wouldn't quit suddenly found himself in a buzz cut, trading blue suede shoes for army boots. And he didn't dodge it. No special treatment, no celebrity escape hatch. Elvis served in Germany for 2 years, driving jeeps, standing guard, and mourning his mother's death. All while millions wondered if the king would ever come back the same.
Stick around, I wanna get my king, let's rock. Everybody, let's rock.
Turns out the military didn't tame him, it humanized him. Parents who once feared rock and roll saw their daughter's idol become a man of duty. And somewhere in the middle of that mess hall and media circus, Elvis met a teenage Priscilla, shaping a future that would end up just as dramatic as his songs.
Yes, there were times I'm sure you knew.
Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett may have had the smoothest voice this side of Sinatra, but before he ever left his heart in San Francisco, he was dodging bullets in Germany. Cause Tony was drafted in 1944, and he served as an infantryman in the final push of World War II, seeing brutal combat and helping liberate a Nazi concentration camp.
Your golden sun will shine.
Naturally and terribly, it left a mark, not just on his heart, but also his entire outlook of life. He later said the war made him a lifelong pacifist, which might explain why his singing always felt like a balm for the soul. And that voice, it wasn't just natural, it was kind of healing.
Oh, that I fulfilled my life.
After the war, he sang with military bands, eventually rising from army mess halls to center stage at Carnegie Hall. And Tony never forgot the boys who didn't make it back, and that quiet reverence clung to every note he sang.
Beside an angel like you.
Gene Autry, the cowboy who took to the clouds. Gene Autry wasn't just the first singing cowboy, he was the gold standard, and by the time World War II rolled around, he was already a household name, but that didn't stop him from enlisting in the US Army Air Forces. Trained as a pilot, Autry flew transport missions and used his fame to boost morale both in the cockpit and on the airwaves.
If you want to be a cowboy, just sing along with me.
Proving that even legends can salute something bigger than themselves. His post-war career only amplified that spirit. Movies, TV shows, and radio programs all carried the same themes of loyalty, bravery, and goodness he lived in uniform. And every holiday season, Here Comes Santa Claus reminded us he could deliver more than just justice from a saddle.
Bring back the gold to your heart.
But if you think Autry was a heartwarmer, wait till you hear about the man who turned Shazam into a falsetto. Jim Nabors, the private with the pipes. As Gomer Pyle, Jim Nabors gave us a goofy, wide-eyed Marine who meant well, even if he bumbled his way through boot camp. But off-screen, Nabors had the voice of an angel and a heart to match, dedicating decades to performing for servicemen and women around the world.
I will understand, believe me.
Though he never officially served, his deep connection to the military earned him an honorary status with the U.S. Marines. And the Marine Corps made him one of their own in spirit and ceremony. And then when he belted out The Impossible Dream or sang the national anthem at the Indy 500, it wasn't just a performance. It was more like a promise that kindness and patriotism never go out of style, not truly.
Reachable stars, distinct white flare.
His unwavering support made him a treasured figure among veterans and civilians alike. But now, let's pour a martini and loosen that tie. Our next crooner knew how to keep cool under pressure, even when the world was at war.
Yo, I know it happens most every night, but tonight it's happening to me.
Dean Martin, the crooner with quiet patriotism. Dean Martin may have made his mark with cocktails in hand and a grin that could melt glass and make me weak at the knees, but he also stepped up when duty called. Dino registered for service during World War II, but was classified 4F due to a double hernia. So while he didn't serve in combat, he used his voice and fame to support the troops every chance he got.
Charge you $20 and he'll give you this advice. It's easier to say.
Whether performing at USO shows, headlining patriotic specials, or charming the socks off veterans, he made his style of service look as effortless as a wink. And honestly, there was something deeply reassuring about his cool demeanor. Like, even in times of tension, Dean would croon, "Everybody loves somebody," and make you believe it.
Something in my heart keeps saying.
Old Dino was proof that morale could be lifted just as high with a song as with a salute. And speaking of reassurance, our next entry brought holiday cheer, wholesome values, and a voice so familiar it felt like home.
Fatter than old King Kong, I mean it in a junkyard dog.
Bobby Venton, the balladeer in uniform. Before Bobby Venton was melting hearts with Blue Velvet and Mr. Lonely, he was wearing army green and leading the band, literally.
She wore blue velvet.
Dubbed the Polish Prince, Venton served in the US Army in the late 50s, where he directed a military band and even performed on military TV programs. Turns out, crooning for the troops was excellent training for serenading America. He brought quiet sincerity to every note, maybe because he understood longing firsthand.
'Cause I was helping to keep our land free.
His hit, Mr. Lonely, was written during his service and originally recorded by someone else before Bobby made it his own anthem of homesick heartbreak. When Bobby sang, you didn't just hear romance, you heard someone who'd seen the world turn cold and still chose tenderness. And speaking of tenderness, our next crooner's heart was as big as his baritone. Vic Deone, the voice that never took a break. And quickly, I'm gonna take a break. If you're enjoying the video, please hit that thumbs up icon, comment what you like, and share it with a friend. It really helps a ton. All right, I'm moving on. Vic Deone had a voice so smooth, even Frank Sinatra supposedly said he had the best pipes in the business.
Endless love.
But when the Korean War came a-callin', Vic didn't skip a beat. He put on the uniform and served in the US Army, where his golden tenor found a new audience among the troops. Whether he was stationed stateside or abroad, Vic kept doing what he did best, singing his heart out and reminding soldiers of home. He wasn't just performing, he was lifting spirits, he was easing nerves, and he was delivering romance in a world that sorely needed it.
Love so easy to idolize.
Deone later said that service gave his songs more depth, and maybe that's why You're Breaking My Heart still lands like a quiet thunderclap. Now, if Vic was all about romance, the next guy mixed in a little twang, a little charm, and a whole lot of gentlemanly style.
Tender, how tender the love.
Eddie Arnold, the country gentleman in combat boots. Long before he brought country music into living rooms with pop polish, Eddie Arnold was serving in the U.S. Army during World War II. He wasn't yet the velvet-voiced Tennessee plowboy, but he already had that calm, comforting presence that would define his decades-long career. Between training drills and radio appearances for the troops, Arnold proved you could wear a uniform and still sound like a front porch lullaby.
It's known as heaven's ride, as I feel the silky softness of your hair.
Now, after the war, he softened the edges of country music and took it mainstream with hits like Make the World Go Away, becoming a favorite of both cowboys and city slickers alike. And that gentlemanly image, it wasn't an act. He was steady, he was loyal, and rooted in values the Army helped reinforce. But now, we're headed to the Pacific, where a future lounge legend was bubbling up with something a bit more tropical.
Be holding you the way I do.
Don Ho, the high-flying Hawaiian. Before he became the laid-back king of tiki tunes, Don Ho was flying high, literally, as a U.S. Air Force pilot. Stationed in Texas and Hawaii during the 1950s, he swapped cockpits for cocktail lounges once his service ended.
With a feeling that I'm gonna love you till the end of time.
Bringing with him the cool confidence of a man who'd seen the skies and still preferred the sunset. Let's admit it, Tiny Bubbles wasn't just a song, it was a whole mood, and Don delivered it like a friendly breeze off Waikiki. His military time gave him discipline, but his heart stayed mellow, blending island tradition with stateside charm. Don became a symbol of aloha spirit for mainland audiences, showing that service and serenity weren't mutually exclusive.
Now here's to the golden moon.
And just when you think we've reached peak smoothness, our next entry belts it out with the passion of 1,000 heartbreaks and a distinctly Italian flair. Jerry Vale, the crooner with the calls. With a voice that could make Arrivederci Roma feel like a personal goodbye, Jerry Vale was the velvet soundtrack of Italian-American households across the country.
Yet still today my eyes are wet. I tell myself to smile.
But before he became a staple on variety shows and mob movie soundtracks, he served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War era. Even in uniform, Vale found himself behind the mic, entertaining fellow soldiers and keeping spirits high when homesickness hit hardest.
I love and see.
Whether it was You Don't Know Me or another one of his classics, there was always a hint of longing in his delivery. Like he'd lived through distance and duty himself. And it turns out he had.
There's nothing else to compare. The sight of you leaves me.
Tex Ritter, the singing cowboy who rode for the flag. Way before John Ritter ever made us cry laughing on Three's Company, his dad, Tex Ritter, was strumming guitars and standing tall as one of the original singing cowboys. During World War II, Tex didn't just wear spurs on screen, he suited up for real, serving stateside in the military while using his rich, booming voice to perform.
Where the water's running free, and it's waiting there for you and me.
He was a staple on morale-boosting concerts for troops across the country. With his 10-gallon hat and heartfelt ballads, Tex reminded soldiers of the simple things: home, honor, and the open range. His songs blended patriotism with prairie wisdom, and he became a comforting constant during a chaotic time.
Mama taken the weevil, put him in the red-hot sand.
Whether in uniform or on a soundstage, Tex believed in the power of music to lift hearts, and his legacy stretched far beyond the trail. Now we trade in the campfire for a curtain call as a tuxedoed tenor prepares to steal the spotlight.
From my post pocket, silver and gold.
Robert Goule, the baritone with backbone. Before he was singing love songs on Broadway and stealing scenes with a single eyebrow raise, Robert Goule was polishing that golden voice in the U.S. Army. He served during the early 50s, honing his craft while also learning the kind of discipline that made him a go-to for national anthems and patriotic performances.
I sit alone with a table and chair.
That military polish gave his already mighty vocals a commanding presence, like every note came with its own salute. Goule went on to become a fixture of stage and screen, but he never lost that air of formality that made him the voice of parades, inaugurations, and tear-inducing tributes. Even when he leaned into comedy later in life, there was always dignity beneath the wink.
Talk to, I want you just the way you are.
And speaking of charm, our next serviceman could pick a guitar as fast as he could crack a smile, and he made America laugh while doing both. Roy Clark, the Pickin' Patriot. Long before he was grinning through corny jokes and lightning-fast licks on Hee Haw, Roy Clark was entertaining a very different crowd, his fellow sailors in the U.S. Navy. Enlisting in the 1950s, Roy brought his banjo and guitar on board, turning downtime into showtime and proving that humor and harmony were just as essential as discipline. Now, his musical genius was already there, because I think he had it at like 2, but the Navy helped him learn how to win over any room, even one full of tired, homesick servicemen. And that same warmth carried over to living rooms across America when Hee Haw made him a household name.
Bring in my baby back.
Blend in country pickin' with pure personality. What I loved about Roy Clark is that he never took himself seriously, but he always took the music to heart. And maybe that's what made him so beloved. And if you watched Hee Haw, if you loved Roy Clark, tell me your favorite memories in the comments below. Now get ready to trade boots for spurs again, because our next legend rode straight from the silver screen to the skies. Frankie Laine, the voice that rode alongside the troops. Frankie Laine didn't just sing about the frontier, he blazed trails of his own, using that thunderous voice to rally support during some of America's toughest times. While he didn't serve in uniform, Laine became a fixture on the USO circuit during World War II and beyond, performing for troops, selling war bonds, and reminding everyone what they were fighting for.
And now that I'm holding you, you understand that life's passing seems the first be played by 2.
With hits like Rawhide and That Lucky Old Sun, he brought grit, soul, and a shot of adrenaline to every stage he stepped onto. There was nothing delicate about Laine. His voice hit like a freight train, and so did his patriotism. Soldiers didn't just watch him perform, they felt him. And that made all the difference.
Moving, though they're disapproving, keep them doggies moving.
Now buckle up, because our next star picked a banjo and wore a smile, all while sneaking a little Navy service into a career full of surprise. Al Martino, the crooner who came home swinging. Before he begged Don Corleone for a favor as Johnny Fontane in The Godfather, Al Martino was a Navy man riding the waves of World War II. He served in the South Pacific, earning combat ribbons long before earning gold records. And when he came home, he didn't waste a second. He jumped straight into music and scored a #1 hit in 1952 with Here in My Heart.
It's a nice and warm in here, we're happy and kind.
A song that felt like a letter sent to home, set to melody. Martino carried that emotional weight into every performance, blending old world charm with post-war passion. His songs weren't just romantic, they were lived in, they were worn like a uniform, and sung with the gratitude of someone who made it back.
Wine-colored days, warmed by the sun.
And now, from South Philly to Hollywood to war zones, we head to a man whose cardigan and calm voice made Sunday evenings feel like a national treasure. Perry Como, the soothing soundtrack of home. Now, Perry Como never wore a uniform, but his voice did more for the troop morale than most care packages ever could. You see, he was too old for active service during World War II. He instead threw his full weight behind the war effort, performing for soldiers, broadcasting patriotic specials.
If you should find you ever need me,
and sending comfort through the airwaves, one relaxed croon at a time. Catch a Falling Star, Magic Moments, and countless others became the musical equivalent of a warm blanket from back home. He wasn't flashy, he didn't need to be. Como's superpower was making you feel like everything was going to be okay no matter what.
forever you stay in my heart.
And And speaking of calm reassurance, the next voice brought elegance, harmony, and a touch of holiday magic to every living room in America. Andy Williams, the voice of Golden Era Americana. Andy Williams might not have clocked in long military hours himself, but his life and music were deeply tied to the spirit of service. While his older brothers served during World War II, Andy kept the home fires burning, first performing with them as the Williams Brothers, and then rising to solo stardom with a voice so pure it practically waved the flag on its own.
To try when your arms are too weary.
From Moon River to his iconic Christmas specials, Williams was that steady presence who made America feel calm, hopeful, and proud. His stage was a sanctuary, an escape wrapped in tuxedos, harmonies, and Midwestern charm. And behind all that sparkle was a quiet patriotism, the kind that didn't shout but sang. And now, speaking of small-town charm and big-time heart, our next entry had a sausage empire, a country classic, and a secret past in the Air Force.
Without your love, it always ends the same.
Jimmy Deane, the airman with a southern drawl. Before he was selling sausage links and singing about a giant of a man named Big Bad John, Jimmy Deane was suiting up in the U.S. Air Force. Enlisting right after high school, Deane served in the late 1940s, stationed stateside where he fine-tuned his skills as a radio technician, as well as his gift for entertaining. And that blend of know-how and folksy charm would serve him very well as he transitioned from barracks to broadcast.
Anytime you say that you want me.
Deane's easygoing style made him a favorite on TV and radio, and whether he was telling stories in song or slinging breakfast food, he always came across like a guy you trust. His service gave him a grounded quality, a kind of respect for hard work and heartland values. Now, to wrap things up, we're heading to a Cuban-born crooner who helped shape American pop culture and brought a whole lot of rhythm to military life.
Started back down and came that rumble way down on the ground, and the smoke and gas belched out of that mine.
Desi Arnaz, the bandleader who marched to his own beat. Long before he was hollering, "Lucy, I'm home," to millions of adoring viewers, Desi Arnaz was proudly serving in the U.S. Army during World War II. Though a back injury from earlier years kept him from overseas duty, Desi contributed stateside, helping entertain and uplift fellow soldiers with his infectious energy and rhythmic flair. His time in uniform only deepened his dedication to the country that gave him a second chance after fleeing Cuba as a teenager. Of course, after the war, he became a pioneer, not just on screen as Ricky Ricardo, but behind the scenes. The man helped revolutionize television with I Love Lucy, and he gave servicemen and civilians alike a reason to laugh again. He never forgot the value of a good performance in dark times, and he delivered joy like it was a mission. Because sometimes a conga drum and a heartfelt smile were all the armor you needed. Alright, who knew so many of the smoothest voices and friendliest faces from our youth once marched, flew, or saluted in uniform? Whether they were lifting spirits on the front lines, crooning through static-filled radios, or quietly supporting the troops from the stage, these stars showed that service comes in many forms. It wasn't about the headlines or heroics. It was about heart, duty, and using their talents to make tough times just a little more bearable. So the next time you hear Blue Velvet or catch a rerun of I Love Lucy, remember, these weren't just entertainers. A lot of them were patriots too. Alright, so which one surprised you the most? Did I leave anyone out that you remember proudly wearing the uniform? Well, please get down in the comment section and tell me who. I would love to make a round two. If you enjoyed our patriotic video, please do your duty and hit that little thumbs up icon. It really helps our channel a ton. Thanks. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you never miss a walk down memory lane or a march. But most importantly, from my entire team here at Do You Remember, I'm Nostalgic Nick, signing off with gratitude and a whole lot of pride.